all of you our fifth edition of Pixels Digital Entertainment Conference, wherein this year's theme is Reaching a New Peak. This conference is a part of IA's initiatives under our entertainment committee to bring in together the various and the right stakeholders. I'm sure it's going to be an immersive virtual conference as we bring together the biggest names from the digital entertainment who will bring out both Indian and the international perspective to all of us. The day's 20 plus sessions. There's a stellar lineup of 70 plus policymakers, industry leaders, celebrities, and influencers from not only the OTT platforms but brands, agencies, technology providers, you name it, and we have it all. We are majorly covering three key themes: technology driven viewer engagement, landscape of the digital entertainment ecosystem, and consumer trends and interests. It's going to be an exciting day ahead, and we're sure that you're going to be taking out a lot of insights from our amazing speaker lineup. Having said that, once again, I'm glad to invite you for the Pixels of 2021, the industry which is expected to touch $12.5 billion by 2030. On that note, Shivani, I would request you to bring up our first session of the day and introduce our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chopra. Welcome, everyone, and to the fireside chat on how OTTs are emerging as mainstream platform. We would like to begin by thanking you all for being part of fifth edition of Pixels Digital Entertainment, reaching a new peak. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our title partner, Woot, Platinum partner, Amazon Prime Video, CX partner, Zendesk, content delivery partner, Limelight Networks, Gold partners, Lionsgate Play, and Shimaru Entertainment. Without any further ado, let me introduce you to our special guest, Mr. Gaurav Rakshan. He is COO from Viacom 18 Digital Ventures. And Mr. Pankaj Doval, he's national editor from the Times of India, who will be moderating today's discussion. Welcome, both of you. I would request all the delegates to keep posting their questions in the chat box, and the panel will take a few selected questions by end of the session. Over to you, Mr. Doval.
Yeah, very good morning to everyone, and really sorry for the delay. There was some technical issue at my end, and we've been doing this for over 1 year now, but still sometimes it's difficult to master the technologies. Very good morning. As my name is Pankaj Doval, and I work with the Times of India, and I'm glad to welcome you all to the fifth edition of Pixels. This is the annual conference on digital entertainment, and as you know, because of safety protocols, we have to be do it virtually. Hopefully, we'll be meeting soon face to face. I'm very happy to welcome Gaurav Rakshit for this fireside chat. Gaurav is the Chief Operating Officer of Viacom 18 Digital Ventures, and we will discuss a topic that we are all very closely related to. OTTs are something that we are all connected, to a large part of the day, and Gaurav is going to give us his views on that. Gaurav is a highly experienced professional who has over 2 decades of experience, and the last 2.5 or 3 years have been spent with Viacom 18, where he has helped build and scale up the popular Voot app platform. Under his leadership, Voot has witnessed exponential growth. It has created a viewership benchmark of 100 million monthly active users, and it has emerged as the most engaged premium advertising-based video-on-demand platform with over 100 billion minutes of watch time in the year. So welcome, Gaurav. Let me just first begin by thanking you, actually, you and all the OTT platforms, because if you were not there, I don't know what we would have done during the lockdown. There was some kind of sanity, and we were all kept entertained. So thanks a lot for that. But looking at the way OTTs have grown over the past 2 3 years, is the cut the cord phenomenon for real? People had started disconnecting their cable connections, their DTH, and they were very comfortable coming into the OTT format. Do you think that this is for real now, and this is becoming a serious business as far as viewership is concerned, as far as business or numbers are concerned?
So I think that through the lockdown, certainly consumption patterns have changed,
Yeah,
and it's given people the opportunity to make different choices.
yeah,
We're in a unique market where the cord, as you say, for broadcast TV, our penetration there itself isn't where it could be, and so in that sense, one still sees broadcast TV growing, and continuing to grow because we are underpenetrated as a market. But certainly, digital seems to be growing faster and significantly faster because I think there is our penetration levels are much lower, especially when you move into tier three and beyond towns. Even with the data revolution, some of that is still left to play out. Whereas I think that certainly in the metros, there is headroom for penetration, but we are well penetrated. Is the way I would describe it. And so I think that this is going to continue for the next 5 to 10 years for sure. It's really a journey that seriously began only 3 years to 4 years ago. And while people like yourself already are completely enamored by the medium, the reality is that it takes a while to achieve full penetration across a nation as wide and diverse as we have. And so that's the journey that we're all on, with lots of headroom for growth.
No, absolutely. But how much has Corona lockdown and this work from study from home contributed to this kind of push towards OTTs? Because
Sure.
we were all getting used to this content on call or content as you switch on, you can get whatever content you want. How much has this lockdown contributed to this growth?
So I think that structurally the industry was always growing at a particular rate. In fact, that's the bet that all the players took, 3 to 4 years ago, saying that this is going to grow. What the lockdown did was it precipitated it much faster than we had expected. And the reality is not just the overall lockdown, but even the initial months where there was virtually no entertainment competition, where television production had come to a standstill. There was no releases in the cinemas, and so suddenly we got a lot more trial during that April, May, June period in the first
Yeah.
lockdown. And that is the gift that is continued to give, because it would have taken us a lot more time to convert those users onto
Yeah.
the platform, although eventually we think that they would have come anyway. The second element that you're talking about, which is depth of consumption,
Yeah.
where people like yourself may have already been on OTT, but had not maybe made as much of a shift. And now we're seeing significant depth of consumption also of the same users that potentially were consumers of OTT before, but are now maybe changing the split of the way they spend their time.
Yeah.
And so that I think is both these factors, both just in terms of users as well as just watch time, both are really triggered by lockdown in that sense, and it's definitely a strong fillip to growth for the industry.
Right. I hope there's no disturbance at the back, because
No, Pankaj,
I'm sitting
no, I think Pankaj, you're coming through very clearly.
right. So, apart from the lockdown, the reason that one of the reasons that I think was helping this build up was also the lower data rates that we have in the country, the increasing penetration of smartphones, that got people hooked onto these platforms. Do you think that that phenomenon is also contributing to this growth? Because I was looking at the last report, data report released by Ericsson. It says that Indians are consuming roughly 16 GB of data per month, an average user. And the good part for you guys is that they are forecasting that it will grow to 50 GB by, I think, 2026 or 27.
Yeah.
As we move to 5G and other kind of technologies, and video is going to lead this demand. So there's going to be a complete boom in this area.
So no, I completely agree with you. I think the first step of the revolution was brought about by affordable data, and so absolutely, that's a great tailwind for the industry. Like you rightly mentioned, while data access became quote unquote almost universal, I don't think speeds achieved that same level of universality. Right? While that's why there is the fiber and broadband revolution in certain parts,
Yeah.
but if you look at our platforms also, there's still a very large number of users, even on 2G, if not 3G, and not everybody's on 4G. I think this 5G revolution is the next big opportunity for us to democratize data at high speeds, and that is a real benefit to our industry. That if you really want to compete against, let's say a linear broadcast stream, which is of very high quality and clarity, then potentially you need your data also to be arriving at the same speed. And I think 5G has the potential to give us that absolutely powerful next leg of growth, where data will, it's not just access to data, but access to data at incredibly high speeds. So very much looking forward to that transition.
But what are the trends in terms of consumers? Are consumers willing to be paid subscribers? Because I think there is still a kind of a hesitancy in India when it comes to becoming a paid member. People want to enjoy all the content, but mostly, it should be like without any subscription. So what is the I would say breakup between the paid subscribers and the people who are watching it for free?
So certainly
Industry numbers.
it's a fraction of the overall, right? I think that's known to people that uh, we'll first establish consumption, and then we will deserve the user's money. Now, obviously, in certain pockets, perhaps you and me, we're not as hesitant to make a transaction or to buy a subscription. But I think that, again, like I mentioned, when you're looking at 500 million users, not all of them have that both the conviction as well as the appetite to buy an online subscription. But I think where that's changing is that this is very much being led by content. And as you start to be able to create content that is especially relevant for these audiences, we are seeing evidence of them willing to pay us. I think the first 3-4 years really has been all the players over serving the low hanging fruit, I'll say, which is really the users that are more amenable to paying and the like. And so our content strategies also have not reflected the next wave of users who will be willing to pay, but obviously need content that is more relevant for their particular consumption habit. And that is, one part of that is regionalization, which is, at least, being able to serve content that in their language of choice. But it's also the nature of the content itself, right? The kind of stories that one tells has to be familiar to them. And I think that is something that is very much the journey for platforms to be able to deserve that money. But the willingness is there, which is really nice to see.
So what is the percentage of paid subscribers to total subscribers now? Like how many are total subscribers to OTT as an industry, and
So
how
as,
many would be paid right now?
so as an industry, I think that a rough and ready estimate about 10% is what one looks at, where between 40 million plus paid users and an overall pie of about 500 million users, right? Broadly in terms of their. Now, what also is happening is that there is a lot of distribution-led premium consumption. So
Yeah.
some of the avenues of whether it's through a telco or something like a Tata Sky or what have you, there are other opportunities to still get quote unquote subscription content to these users without them having to pay. And again, two reasons for that. One, you talked about appetite, which I think is a very important variable. But the other one is also we do have digital payment friction in this country, right? I think that really strong UPI adoption is a driver, and
Yeah.
as we see that increasing, the payment friction goes away because we are very underpenetrated as a credit card market. I mean, there's no way to only play credit card, and so the advantage of having frictionless payment systems is
Yeah.
really one other tailwind that the subscription universe will benefit from. And we're seeing that actually playing out when you look at the percentage of transactions, especially when you go into tier 2 and tier 3 towns, very, very different than what one would get, early in the early days of subscription.
So UPI is helping in this. Like that
Extremely,
gives them the confidence
extremely,
to pay. Yeah, but it's
extremely.
just I just wonder, yeah, who catches them first? Once you've got a Netflix or you've got a Woot or you've got Amazon and then you've got Disney Hotstar. So how many subscriptions you take? And then if people who've not moved out of their traditional cable or other kind of businesses, so they would always calculate their bill and say that it's getting a lot. That kind of a dilemma also stays there in the market, I'm sure.
So I think streaming citizenship is still evolving. And when I say streaming citizenship, I mean that I am a Woot consumer for life, or I am, a Netflix consumer for life. I think that is still probably a decade away. I think today consumers move where they see value, and so we're still a value conscious market where we're not willing to blindly take citizenship of any platform. And so as a result, there is an opportunity as well as a challenge because the opportunity is that the battle lines are open for the next 5 years at least. The challenge is that the same thing that enables you will also allow you to lose users, and so it ends up being a very expensive business in this investment phase of the life cycle of streaming. But I think that's the nature of any new market or new industry. There is certainly consumers also finding their feet, figuring out what they like. Today they have the luxury where pricing is fairly liberal, I would say, and conservative, or in terms of actually how aggressive it is. And so they are able to actually migrate from one platform to the other to try and figure out what works best for them. So that I see continuing for the next 3 to 5 years.
But Gaurav, are we also trying at phenomenon like what happened with that chick shampoo kind of a theory where you're giving sachets, especially when we're entering tier 2, tier 3 markets. Okay, so
Yeah.
weekly sachet, day, I don't know if there's a daily sachet or a monthly sachet. Do you also adopt those kind of strategies?
It's a good question. I think that everyone's figuring this one out. The one reality of digital, which is different than physical distribution, is that one click and you're gone as a user, right? And so when you look at physical distribution and sachet pricing, it is really around the distribution systems are already there. So the user keeps going to that same kirana, but in digital, there is no guarantee that they're even coming back to your application, right? It's one click, you're gone. 300 times a day, you're looking at WhatsApp. It's a very different ecosystem, and so therefore the business models need to reflect this particular reality, which I don't think you can blindly borrow. My personal view is that if you go to sachets, that will more be in the zone of TVOD, which is a pay-as-you-go, pay for that particular content piece. I don't think subscription services will probably go down to a daily rate or low, in my view. But you could always enable a consumer with a particular piece of content, which they pay for, and then they move on because they only want to have that transactional relationship for the piece of content. But the predicate of the industry is that it is a subscription model. So I don't pretend to say that I know the future, but this is my preference based on what I've seen, is that you need to create enough value for a consumer that they're willing to actually have a slightly longer term relationship with you than a purely transactional relationship with you, because otherwise you will not make ends meet as a platform. Although it might be attractive, you will not be able to join the dots. The content business is extremely expensive, whereas in the gross margin business, like you're talking about, let's say, a Nescafe sachet, it is still cost plus. You're still making money in every unit. It doesn't work quite like that in the content business. So that's the...
In traditional DTH business and all, I think we can all choose for whatever. I think there's a minimum threshold of 3 months or so, and then we can...
Absolutely. And so there'll be that I think would come in. There will be thresholds. I was only reacting to maybe one day. I think that will probably may defeat the economics of the industry, in my view.
Right. And what is growing faster? Like, I mean, say in terms of growth rates, is OTT, what is the growth rate of OTT versus the traditional cable versus DTH? Which one is growing the fastest? I'm sure the cable would have the maximum number of subscribers, but in terms of growth rates, is it slowing down? Is it growing? DTH slowing down?
It's growing, but it'll never, grow at the rate of OTT just because of the headroom that we have. I mean, we are underpenetrated, right? And the difference is that even in those industries, you have a particular subscription which the family watches. Today, you've got everybody with their own device, and you're almost multiplying the number of potential subscriptions by 4 or 5, or and users, which otherwise you're counting a household typically in the TV world. So I think that while there will be growth in those markets, the streaming market is enormous. And we have not really tapped into it, especially in the subscription space. So to be at 40 million and change subscribers is massive headroom in terms of where we can go as a business. So I don't see that us tapping out for anywhere between 5 and 10 years, and that's if there are no more disruptions. Otherwise, it could go even faster. So I think that we need to, as an industry, figure out, actually the reality in this industry is acquisition is very easy.
Yeah.
The point that you made about retention, which is how many are you going to continue to use? That is hard, right? How do you deserve to continue that relationship with the customer, that is a lot harder. Because otherwise, trying out a service, figuring it out, maybe a piece of content interested you, very, very easy to achieve, frankly. But to hold, much harder, because they need to come to your app. Unlike in the broadcast world where you just change channels, right? And you're moving up and down within a swathe. So that's
Right.
the challenge of the industry.
What about movies and cinema? We see them opening up now, with the corona restrictions going down. At least, hopefully, this Omicron does not spread like that. Uh, what is the future of, movie theater releases? Because people have also got comfortable in releasing them on OTT platforms. They get their money back, and platforms also have an edge in terms of, showing the premium content to the subscribers. Uh, do you think now gradually movies releases will also happen on OTT platforms in a big way and not go back that in that fashion to the cinemas?
In my view, the old release model that was followed by cinema actually maximized the value for that project for them. I don't think they get as much value by releasing on digital exclusively,
Okay.
because fundamentally there are such different experiences that you can actually get both pieces of value. One doesn't compromise the other. And so I think we lost out as a community through lockdown and not being able to release films uh, in cinemas. I don't think that takes such a big bite out of OTT. In fact, I think that it helps both the streaming industry as well as the producers of films to actually have that theatrical release, which is a hype cycle event. You can't really achieve that in the same order of magnitude that you can do on OTT, just because we are a time shifted business. We are a consume at your own convenience business, and we will never be able to generate that equivalent hype cycle that one can do in cinemas. So I'm partial to the fact that at least for many films, release will go to cinema. It's true that certain types of films, which maybe you had to go to the cinema to see, which you could not see at home, maybe some of those will go straight to digital, possibly. We will rebalance. There's no question in some way, because consumers now have formed a different pattern, and so they will have to choose which films they are willing to go to the cinema for, because it's an active decision, assuming that it is going to come to digital later and things like that. So there will be a rebalancing, but
Right.
I'm partial to the old model, to be honest.
Right. I think we have 2, 3 more minutes since we started
Sure.
late. One was about the content. How expensive is the content becoming? Because everybody is fighting for quality content today. And I met Reed Hastings recently when he was in Delhi, and I think the most discussion was around the content that he was acquiring, and he was discussing content, and the battle goes for you as well. So, is it increasingly becoming difficult to buy quality content? Is the content getting expensive? Uh, how's the business like?
So the appetite is so high that I think that first problem is that you have a supply constraint. There are only so many creators, right? And the difference between broadcast is that you put out one and everybody watches it. But here
Yeah,
you're anyway serving an audience of one in every home, and so the amount of content you have to create to serve the same number of people is significantly higher if we are doing our jobs properly, which means that our demand is so much higher. And now we have not been able to invest in growing the industry dramatically. It's only been 3 4 years. You cannot suddenly have 5x the suppliers. That won't happen. And so the pressures on supply are actually what leads to escalating cost. If we had a strong supply ecosystem, then I think that they would balance out. It's still expensive, because when I'm serving 10 million people on TV versus 10 million on digital, I'm putting more content out on digital than we would do in the TV world. But at least we'd be able to figure it out. Right now, our supply ecosystem also needs to come up to speed, because just because consumers want it doesn't mean that you can build a supply system overnight. And so
right,
that's a large opportunity for the next at least 5 years, to create a strong supply ecosystem to feed this.
right.
Uh, so that's a challenge that we have as an industry. So we will have to figure this one out.
But is the industry overall making money in the sense that it's at a very nascent stage? You guys also have to invest, and content is getting expensive. Quality content, I mean to say. Are you guys have started making money, or do you think it take 3, 4 years for platforms like yours to really become profitable?
So I think on the subscription side, like we talked about two businesses, the subscription side of the business, will be an investment business for the next 3-4 years for everyone, I think.
Yeah.
Because fundamentally that habit is still getting created and you're participating in the journey as an industry to create that habit. So I do see that being in the investment cycle.
Yeah.
Our AWOD businesses, which are advertising supported, are actually have been in existence for a lot longer. Those models are a lot better understood, and I'm seeing a very strong take from industry also, which is our clients, advertisers, to move digital. So those businesses should be in and around profitability even now, in my view. So I think that if that business is running an investment mode, you are probably doing something wrong. It's just my outlook on the AWOD side of the business. I think that this everybody recognizes that subscription is still has a lot more legs, and so it's fair to say that that one runs in investment mode as long as you have a roadmap to profitability.
Right, right. And my last question is about new technologies coming in, with 5G and all. We talk about augmented reality, we talk about virtual reality. I'm sure
Yeah.
things are going to change as we talk about metaverse and all. How are you guys preparing for this? Because I may just take out my glasses, say in the next 2-3 years, and I'm in my virtual reality gear, and then things could be very different. Are you guys also padding up for this kind of a transition? Because this will be a very big transition, and I don't know content delivery. How does it change? What are you guys doing about that?
So it's a good question. It's a big question also in that sense. I think that every organization needs to play a few moonshots in terms of what they think the future could look like, and it should, in my view, be driven by your users. Because whether you take the metaverse route or you take deep faking and having much deeper engagement through celebrity, or you look at uh, socialification of your own content, you figure out how AI can be used in the content itself. There are so many opportunities to double down that as an organization you've got to figure out, yeah, these all exist. What would my user be happiest with? Because every one of us have our own user bases, and if you start just doing what's cool, either you're willing to jettison your user base and move on. But let's assume that you have a particular stated user base that you're doing all of this for. You need to figure out which of these opportunities will sit the best with this user base, and then, like you're saying, there will be investment mode decisions. You will play the longer run game, because it's not going to close out in the next year or so. It will be a 2-3 year journey, whether you pick aspects of the metaverse or any of these to play in deep. So, but I find it's easier to be driven by your user, because otherwise, if you're driven by the market, you will get screwed. There's just so much stuff out there that you will never be able to sort of be happy or proud of the choices you're making, because you can never do it all. That's the challenge, and so that's kind of how we're approaching it, at least, Pankaj.
Right, right, right. Thank you, Gaurav. Thanks a lot for this engaging discussion. We hope to meet face to face very soon. Hopefully, these
Yeah.
restrictions are going to go down. We'll come back to a normal
It'll
world.
happen. It'll
Uh,
happen.
and, thanks for all the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers. Great discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Akshan. Thank you, Mr. Dowell, for such an engaging discussion. Another thanks goes out to our audience who are here with us today. This session was brought to you by Woot. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Stay safe.
Thanks. Thank you.